For this episode, we'll be comparing three popular lockout tagout locks: the PacLock 410, the Ep41, and the PacLock PL410-Pro. This video was a suggestion made by Nick's Picks. Hey folks, welcome to Pugs Picks Locks. If you're new here, feel free to click that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, so you'll always be notified when I release new content like this. And if you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, click that like button, and then leave a comment or question down below. Did I get something wrong? Is there something I could do better, do differently? Please let me know. I want to learn from all of you to continue to grow my knowledge and skill set and provide you with better and better content. Also, leave a comment if there's a specific topic that you'd like covered in a future video. Okay, let's start with the shout out of the week. This week, the shout out goes to Nick's Picks, who suggested this video. Nick is a great example of what the Locksport community has to offer. Not only has he been a staunch supporter of my channel, he's lent that same level of support to others who are starting out on their Locksport journeys. In addition to being a great guy, he's also a fantastic picker and fabricator. His videos cover picking and also how to make homemade Locksport tools. He's currently at 424 subscribers, and the least we can do is hop over, give him a sub, and get him over that 500 mark. Alright, let's dive into this week's video. LOTOs are fun locks to pick and are often people's first introductions to security pins. For instance, this PacLock 410 has a 6-pin core with all spool pins except for a serrated pin in position 5. Now, every 410 that I've ever touched, and that's quite a few, that serrated pin has lived in position 5, so I'm pretty sure that's standard across all 410s. This Ep41 is similar. It also is a 6-pin core with all spool pins except for a standard pin instead of a serrated pin. And that standard pin lives in position 1 on these locks, which is pretty typical of ABIS locks. Any ABIS lock that has all spool pins and one standard pin, the standard pin is going to live in position 1. That's true of the titanium line, the 5540s, and so on and so forth. This PacLock PL410-Pro, however, is there's no way to gut it without destroying it, without breaking it open. So I've never gutted this one. It's my only one, but I'm very sure that it shares the same core as the 90A Pro, which is, I'm showing you the pinning for that particular lock from which is guttable. And you can see that it's a 7-pin core with a random assortment of serrated and spool pins, along with a giant standard pin in position 7. So keep in mind, what I'm showing you is the pinning from a 90A Pro, which I am pretty certain is the same core that's in this PL410-Pro. There's also a difference in keyways. For instance, you can see that this PL410-Pro has a giant non-paracentric keyway. You can see that there's all sorts of room in there to work. There's no warding whatsoever interfering with the pick moving in the keyway and accessing the pins. That is a very accessible keyway. The ABIS and the PacLock, however, both have paracentric keyways. You can see that there's warding crossing the center line, and that warding interferes with the pick's ability to access the pins. So you have to kind of come at it from an angle in order to access those pins. So, and both of those keyways are also narrower than the keyway on the PacLock. So you can see that it's a narrower keyway on these two. And these two have paracentric keyways, and this one is a non-paracentric keyway, meaning there is no warding crossing the center line, interfering with access to the pins. The other difference here is that even though both of these have a narrower keyway than the PacLock, you can see that the keyway for the ABIS is actually narrower still than the keyway for the 410 for the master lock. For the master lock, I can use my favorite little Z-wrench tensioner, and I can use it top of the keyway just fine, and I can also use it bottom of the keyway just fine. And with these master lock 410s, I'll do both. Lately I've been tending more towards top of the keyway tension, just to give myself more room to work, more room to maneuver the pick. But I can absolutely open these with bottom of the keyway tension. That's still plenty enough room to work and access the pins. This ABIS, however, you'll see that there's simply not enough room in there to get bottom of the keyway tension working. And if I did, there's no room, because of how tiny the keyway is, there'd be no room to actually manipulate a pick in there. So this one demands top of the keyway tension, but that keyway is still narrow enough, and the warding is paracentric enough that I cannot get top of the keyway tension going with this little Z-wrench. Instead, I have to go to a pry bar that is 28 thousandths of an inch. And this pry bar, being 28 thousandths of an inch, you can see how flexible it is. And so that actually deadens the feedback that you get from the core a little bit. But it's the only one that I have that fits, and so it's what I use for these. The other difference is that the ABIS has a sprung shackle. There's spring tension there, and it has a sprung core, which you'll see when we're picking it. The master lock has a dead shackle, and it has a dead core, meaning there's no spring in the shackle, no spring in the core. So it's the same as the PacLock, which is also a dead shackle and a dead core. No springs in either one of these two. But the ABIS is sprung, and that little bit of spring assistance is actually a benefit. It actually helps you as you're picking. And then the last difference, which has no impact whatsoever on how they pick, is that both of these are captive key locks. They're both captive key cores, meaning that when you insert a key, turn it to open it, the key cannot be removed until it is closed back up and the core is rotated back into the locked position. The ABIS, however, you can remove the key after you've unlocked it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start with the 410. So I've had a lot of experience picking master lock 410s. I know them very well, and that serrated pin in position 5 actually makes them incredibly predictable. So if I go in and I get on pin 5, I get a click right away. Then I go to pin 4. There's tiny little counter rotation. You can barely even see it. But then you get the open celebratory swivel. So knowing that the serrated pin is in pin 5, and then you can just play hunt the spools after that. So I go after pin 5. Oops. Then I go to the spool on pin 4, spool on pin 3. I moved too far. Here we go again. So serrated pin on pin 5, and then spool on pin 4, spool on pin 3, and you can barely see the counter rotation. It's not very significant. And then a spool on pin 2. 1 and 6 are 0 lift pins in this particular lock, and we get an open. So going after pin 5 is a pretty good strategy with these 410s. Not all of them will let you do that, however. Pin 5 will not bind. For instance, this lock is a little bit harder, and this lock has been cracked open and gutted. You can see the seams where I glued it back together. But this lock is a little bit harder in that regard. If I go to the back of the lock, there's pin 6, there's pin 5, and pin 5 just oversets right away. It doesn't, that same strategy doesn't work. But if I go to pin 4, set pin 4, get 1 click out of 4, then go back to 5, I can get the false set. Now I go back to 4, and you can see counter rotation and a click. 3, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5 feels good. So now it should just be 6, which is way in the back end as a max lift on this particular lock. So if I get back on it, getting on it is a little bit of a trick because, so let me reset here and do that again. Okay. So I recently did a video going deeper in depth on how to approach 410. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link in the description. Okay, there we go, 4. There's 5, 4, 3, 2, click out of 2, click out of 3, deeper false set. So I think 6, now even deeper false set. I think 6 is the last one remaining. So get on top of it, and there we go. So you can see that going after pin 5 doesn't always work. Going after pin 5 first doesn't always work, but it can in a lot of the 410s. It does work. So the let's go after the PacLock next to keep bumping the close-up camera. The PacLock, from this wide open keyway, I mean, it's just, it's so easy to work on these. These I tend to pick from front to back. And so I got 2 clicks, which out of pin 1, so that's a serrated pin. A click out of pin 2. Click out of pin 3, and then I'm in a pretty deep false set. So now, and then a click out of pin 7, which had a lot of movement to it. So salvatory swivel. So these, once you know what to feel for, and knowing that you have that giant standard pin in back, going after these just in terms of binding order, and then, well, I mean, I'm just literally going after it. 1, 2, 3. Let's try that again. 2 clicks out of 1, 1 click out of 2, 1 click out of 3, and then go to the back of the lock, get on top of pin 7. Overset. I just release tension a little bit, let things fall back into place, and there we go. So for this particular lock, and like I said, it shares a core with the 98 Pro, I'm pretty certain, and I take the same approach with the 98 Pro, in which I start at pin 1 and then I work my way to the back. That's I have a couple of 98 Pros, I have one of these, and all 3 of them work with that same strategy. that giant standard pin in position 7 is either the last or the second to last pin that I set. Sometimes there's after I set it, there's a serrated pin that needs a couple more clicks on some of the 98 Pros. Okay, this ABUS here, like I said, I can't tension it with my standard Z-wrench that I always use. Instead, I go to a pry bar, which is a 28,000ths of an inch. Then I go start at the back of the lock with these. I tend to save the standard pin in front. I either save that for last, or as is the case with this lock, I actually don't need to touch that pin. So let's go to the back of the lock. There was pin 6. I don't know if you saw the little bit of counter rotation that I got when I set that. So let me do that again. See that counter rotation? And then I go to pin 5, counter rotation. And then touch 4, I go into deeper false set. And then I go after 3 here. And I lost it. And so you can see the counter rotation on 3, and there we go. We have her open. So I didn't have to touch pins 1 or 2. And let me show you that this is, in fact, a sprung core. You see how it's trying to spring back? It's a sprung core, and it's a sprung shackle. And like I said, it's not a captive key either, but that doesn't affect the picking experience at all. So in another video, I'll actually gut this lock, and I'll show you why I don't have to touch pins 1 or 2 when I pick it. It's actually a very interesting reason, and that I can't really demonstrate unless I gut it. And this video would go really long if I did. So anyhow, the PL410-Pro, in spite of this wide open keyway, I think is the most challenging pick out of the 3. Obviously, there are exceptions. Like this one is actually fairly easy, especially now that I know it so well and I've picked it so many times. And so there are exceptions that'll make one particular lock of any particular model easier than others in that same model or whatever. But I think that the randomized spools and serrated pins, plus that giant standard pin in position 7, makes this lock a little bit less predictable and more challenging than the other 2. The predictability of having the serrated pin in pin 5 on these 410s, that really, in my opinion, makes these easy in spite of the paracentric keyway. And these really, like I said, you can go bottom the keyway tension or top the keyway tension. There's enough room to work. And in spite of that paracentric keyway, I've never had a problem maneuvering a pick in this lock. So that serrated pin in position 5, the predictability of it, that makes it a pretty easy pick, I think. And then the ABUS is likewise predictable, having that standard pin in position 1 with the rest being spools. Although generally with ABUSes, as a rule, I tend to start at the back of the lock. There's a few exceptions, obviously. The same approach doesn't work for everything. But I tend to start at the back of the lock and save the standard pin for last. But knowing that there's a standard pin in position 1 gives it some of the same predictability that the 410 has. The PacLock, the PL410-Pro, you would think that it might have some of that same predictability with a standard pin in position 7, but the randomized spools and serrated pin just makes it, I think, gives it the edge in terms of being a little bit more challenging. So if I had to rank these 3 models in general, I'd rate the PL410-Pro as being the most challenging, followed by the Masterlock 410, which just barely edges out the Abus. I find Abuses to be fairly easy picks in general. You ask me on a different day, I might swap these two in terms of their ranking, just on the basis of that keyway being narrower, smaller, more difficult to tension and all that kind of good stuff. Obviously, like I said, individual locks of each model may be more or less challenging than others for any number of reasons, but today it goes PacLock, Masterlock, then Abus.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, remember to drop a like and leave a comment or a question below. If you're new here, subscribe and ring the notification bell for more content like this. Until the next video, happy picking y'all.